ecosystems.
It was interesting. You make reference to the Atlantic Ocean as sort of the unwanted stepchild of the oceans, or the unappreciated stepchild of the oceans. Is it not your favorite ocean?
Well, no, it became one that I was able to look at with fresh eyes.
Think it gets no respect?
I think we take it for granted. I think was the idea. You know, we were in the Indian Ocean off of Africa, very exotic. And when you say Indian Ocean to people, people always think, you know, Pacific Ocean, the islands, and all these amazing things that are there. And we were in the Mediterranean, and we're going to the Red Sea and Tasmania, the Great Southern Ocean. I mean, many people have even heard of the Great Southern Ocean.
Oh man.
We're going to be in the Arctic in June. So the Atlantic, it's kind of like, well, they cross the Atlantic all the time. People kind of take it from, you know, so many people live on the coast, Europe, the United States. And it's something I had taken for granted and hadn't appreciated. It's the youngest ocean in the world, but really one of the most important oceans in the world because of the commerce that occurs on the Atlantic Ocean and the fact that the Gulf Stream is a major component of the Atlantic Ocean, which has an impact on global climate. And the interesting thing is that the Bahamas, because of the Bahamas at one point is only 60 miles from the coast of Florida, it provides this funneling effect. So the Gulf Stream shoots through and it actually accelerates the Gulf Stream so we can reach all the way up into the Arctic and make the weather of the UK and Europe more mild than similar areas on the same latitude.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But
it's the same way the hurricanes travel up, isn't it?
Indeed, because it kind of follows that mid-Atlantic Gulf Stream current.
Right.
On the flip side, though, the Gulf Stream deposits sediment along the coast of the Bahamas Islands, which means they don't erode away. So the Bahamas exist because of the Gulf Stream. The Gulf Stream in its form exists because of the Bahamas. That's why we went there. I didn't even know that. I didn't know that when we first went there. I thought it was really interesting.
You're not going to
so
tell
the
us
Atlantic's interesting.
The Bahamas aren't in any danger of going anywhere, are they?
No, the Bahamas aren't. Well, I mean, if sea levels rise, there's nothing you can do about that.
Right.
The Bahamas, like every other low-lying area, including huge chunks of
Washington,
Florida,
DC.
New York, Washington, D.C., I mean, everywhere. Yeah, we'll probably be it'd be beachfront property, everybody. That's good. Increase the property prices, a little value there.
What is the biggest threat to the Atlantic Ocean? Since it affects us most directly, those of us who live.
I mean, certainly the biggest threat to the Atlantic Ocean as a whole system is climate change.
Yeah.
There's a current that's called by various different names, the conveyor belt, the thermal halide current, etc., that runs the entire course of the oceans. Part of it deep, and then comes up, and then shallow. Actually goes down in the Arctic, and then flows down, and then around the Antarctic and the Pacific, flows back up. And it really regulates global climate. And as the ice caps melt, which they are doing at an alarming rate, the influx of fresh cold water shifts that the warm water systems that cause the saltier water to sink north up and around the Arctic, and that keep this kind of conveyor belt going. It's very complicated, I won't go into it. But in other words, with climate change shifting these systems, shifting these currents, that totally changes the climate of our planet, which changes our weather, which changes food, crops, weather, rain patterns, everything.
Now, you know there's a conference going on in New York right now of people who tend to think that climate change is a fraud. In fact, the fellow who founded the Weather Channel, a guy named John Coleman, just this week said that Al Gore should be sued and that climate change is a fraud. Do you
More lawyers, excellent.
Do you come up? Do you find yourself in situations with these people? Do you get in debates with them? Do you?
You know, I haven't gotten in.
How do you think somebody can think that?
You know, I haven't gotten in too many debates. I think the evidence is so overwhelming that anyone who's a detractor it's just unfortunate, and I think I know they'll be proven wrong. I think And that aside, in fact, forget that even. Let me start this way.
Okay.
The principle of the precautionary principle is a good one to keep in mind, because the price of not dealing with climate change, if it exists, which it does, is just the world not existing the way we take it for granted today.
Right.
Conflicts caused by droughts and shifting weather patterns and reduction in food sources and fresh water and I mean there's reports from the NSA and declassified things I've read that talk about real fear from a national security perspective of how weather is changing and what this is going to mean to mass migrations of people. And so the consequences of that are continued dirty air and high rates of lung cancer and death from air pollution. I think the American Lung Association estimates around 25,000 people a year die because of air pollution or related to air pollution. More children with asthma. I think God, it's like 2/3 or half the children in New York City have asthma. Something absurd like that.
The asthma rates are...
Asthma rates are skyrocketing.
Yeah.
Things we're seeing
even
with
in
health
adults.
impacting, even in adults.
Yeah.
So those things will continue. We'll continue to be beholden to oil, which is not a good thing.
No.
If we deal with climate change, we will mitigate the impacts. We won't eliminate, but we'll mitigate the impacts of what could be such a catastrophe for the planet. Even if it doesn't exist, what are the byproducts of that? We have green, sustainable industries, cleaner air, healthier children, healthier communities. We have renewable energy that we don't have to pay astronomical prices to be beholden to other countries.
Do you think your
There's no
films
downside.
do you think your films can have an impact?
You know, I think film or work, even the films of my grandfather and father, the
Right.
films that we're working on, films that many people are working on, or media and education, are part of a greater whole. I mean, they're not the silver bullet.
Right.
They add to the momentum.
But with your passion and being in Washington, I would think finding ways to get yourself in front of Congress or to get yourself, another platform beyond just,
well, there's no
television.
question that television does
Gives you power.
gives you power, gives you a
Right.
platform, and gives
Right.
you recognition. I mean, that is a powerful.
Do you
thing.
think that enough is in your very network, like Discovery and BBC? Do you think they devote enough attention to the subject?
Well, Discovery has just launched an initiative called Planet Green. So yes, I do.
You're-
The new CEO of Discovery, David Zaslav, who took over a year ago, has really changed, and John Hendricks as well have said, we're really going to focus the entire DCI family, Discovery Communications International, towards this Planet Green initiative of being much more eco-focused. So yeah, I think they're changing as well.
Is there any way that you could recreate or a this century version of what your grandfather did, where you had a weekly show, where you had a weekly, wasn't it weekly? I think his show was weekly. Or,
I mean, they aired oftentimes a lot of reruns, but they only did 4 new shows a year. So,
Okay.
but they did them for 20 years.
okay,
so,
well,
I
we
mean, there
want
was
you to
plenty
have
of
a
stuff to
weekly
keep going.
because that would be this century.
I think not in the same way.
Right, of course
because
Maybe
they were
on the
seeing
web.
those things for the first time.
Right.
But I think through new media and certainly through television, I mean, this Ocean series, we're excited about it with BBC, and the opportunity of new media and mobile devices, cell phones, and whatever was making this squeak earlier. Those are the
always
technologies that
something
are
that
everywhere.
makes-
Everybody
yeah.
has them now, and it's an
Right.
opportunity to put information, interactive information, to start dialogue and inspire people in their hands that my grandfather probably never had.
Yeah.
So I think in new ways there are opportunities to create, and we're seeing a growth of a new movement. The key is that is to start framing this as lifestyle and start framing this as a solution that we all get engaged in.